I mean, I don't know if y'all know this, but I sat Chris down one day and I bawled my eyes out and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore.
All right, guys, welcome to Ep.6. It's my team and I. We are back to give you a little bit more business advice. And as you see, the name of our channel is Sweat Equity. And there was a very particular reason for that, is because we are all very familiar in the sweat equity part of a business, especially these three, because they put in 2 years of sweat equity in exchange for a percent in some companies of mine that I had started. And so we just want to go over and explain to you guys a little bit about what sweat equity is and what it really looks like. I've seen a lot of videos on it, and it really just gives you the definition of sweat equity, not really what it's like, what the real life experience is like, and the timelines and things like that. So essentially, sweat equity is basically getting a piece of a company, equity in a company, when you don't have the money to put up for it. So it can be literally labor. It can be hours in a working hours in a company. It can be raising money. It can be in exchange for advertising, things like that. But literally stuff that will make you sweat, in exchange for equity in a company. And it is probably the most important equity you can put in a company, especially as a founder of a company. A lot of people don't realize that when I started Mad Hatter, the first bar that we started, or the first bar that I started, you don't really look at it as sweat equity. But, Jawan was there when we first started, and KP was always been around, and Bailey came on about a year later. But what a lot of people didn't see is me working open to close, day in, day out, for weeks and for months, and sitting there. And that was my only income. I didn't have enough really money to not work in my business as a bartender and still survive with my own bills and whatnot. So that was my sweat equity in my own company. And I also raised $20,000 of the startup capital that we needed. I only had about 10,000 myself. My grandfather gave me 10,000, and then my business partner at the time, we raised another 20,000, actually another 30,000, 10 from his parents, and then 20 from another investor. So that is also a form of sweat equity, is to be able to raise money for a company that maybe is not necessarily yours, but it does gain you equity into a company. So one thing that Mark Cuban said is that was really, really kind of profound to me, is the one thing that you can control is the effort you put into something. And that is very much sweat equity. It is what effort can you put in, what can you bring to the table if you don't have a pile of cash to bring to the table to open up a business. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit today, is basically what y'all's experiences were with sweat equity and how y'all were able to see the bigger picture through the long hours, working for peanuts, but still pushing through and able to see the long-term goal for yourselves, for your family, and for your future. And now here we are today, 4 years later, all opening another business together, and now we have 4 under our belt. Where we y'all started with 1. And basically, what I want you guys to talk about is give people the real good, bad, and ugly. And to be quite honest with you, other than not having to come up with money, there's really not a lot of good to sweat equity. It's not a very pretty way to invest in a company. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. And just to give you guys an overview of sweat equity, as an owner or a founder of a company, you can there's no law on sweat equity, what you can set up. It's kind of what you feel is fair to warrant the amount of equity you're going to give up in that company. Because whereas you're not getting paid a big, beautiful salary up front and you're working for peanuts, as I say, you have to understand that now you are able to gain access to the actual equity in the company with the agreed upon terms that you came up with. And I'll give you guys basically how we did it. And what we agreed on is because I put up all the money to open Rabbit Hole, and y'all all agreed for y'all's percentage of the company to work for 2 years for a very, very small salary. Very small salary. But these two actually still bartended and were able to make, bills and get by with that source of income. And KP is a marketing, has her own marketing company, and that was still sufficing her and bringing her income in while she still put in her sweat equity at Rabbit Hole. So the benefits to being in a bar is that as an owner, you guys can still bartend and make that money and bring in that money that when you need it, make your own schedule and things like that. In another business, like if I wanted to go into a marketing business, I would have to have another source of income if I was going to work on the sweat equity terms. Because if I'm trying to pay off a year or two of equity working in her business, but I'm not getting paid, what that equity's worth, but she's nice enough to give it to me, then at that point, I'm going to have to Uber, bartend, do something to suffice and get by with my bills. So it is a little bit different depending on what kind of company you're in. Again, luckily we are in the bar business, so you guys were able to bartend and bring in that money and not have to go somewhere else and work at Walmart or Uber Eats or something like that while you worked off your sweat equity. Yeah. So that is essentially what it is. And as an owner, as a founder of a company, you can kind of dictate those terms. Obviously, you want to be fair about it. It can be an amount of time that they only get a small salary, but they have to bring this much to the table. They have to raise money or whatever it is your terms are. That is essentially sweat equity. It is basically busting your butt for a certain amount of time until you do receive the salary and you do receive the benefits of the equity and not have to worry about, trying to find another income while you're doing that. Mm-hmm. So, so I wanted you guys to hear the real, like I said, the good, the bad, the ugly from 3 people that have done it, been there, and did 2 years of it. And now we are all doing sweat equity to open this new spot, Seared, because we're not getting paid for all these hours. Mm-hmm. That is more sweat equity. A lot of people don't understand that, but that is our sweat equity into this new company. Mm-hmm. Granted, we have a nice little nest egg from Rabbit Hole that we're able to, again, sacrifice our own money to see a bigger picture and a bigger plan to open another business. So, but what I want to talk about today is what y'all's experience was for those 2 years, the frustrations you had, the feeling that you had, how long it took, and what actually made you start feeling like an owner, walking, talking, and feeling like an owner every time you walked into the door and unlocked it, realizing that was y'all's place of business. Because as we spoke off camera, I felt like that it took y'all a little bit to really grab hold of what y'all felt like as owners. Now, y'all are very much 100% acting, talking, walking like owners. So I love that for you guys. That's what I've always wanted for y'all, is to feel that sense of ownership and pride in that. So Juwan, you want to talk about yours? You've got a couple of them because you have Mad Hatter Richardson as well.
I guess mine's a little different though, I guess in a way, because I did it twice and it was like still working on one, then I had to give up a lot more on the next one, because it's like, I know originally with all of us, you're like, all right, cool, you guys can bartend. And it's like, all right, that's cool. And then you're like, all right, this isn't this. It's because it's kind of tough. It's like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be at first. And then you eventually learn, like, all right, cool, long-term plan. Because with me being a dad, so I was like, all right, cool. This is just Kennedy and Kendall. That's kind of what I told myself a lot in the background. And then I remember one meeting, you're like, all right, cool, you guys got to give up one shift of bartending. I was like, I was just like, ain't no way. It's just like, ain't no way. But eventually I did it, and just kind of turned like it's my life around in a way. Like, can't do this, can't do the things I used to do, can't, I guess for a while, I guess I wasn't enjoying, I guess, like my personal life like I wanted to be, but I understood why, because in the end it was for them, it was for myself, it's for the future. And then smack dab in the middle of it, we're like, all right, cool, we got this chance for Richardson. And I was like, all right. I remember originally for us, it was us three plus Eric. And then I was like, all right, cool, Juwan, you'll still be able to bartend to make that money. And then, Eric in the kitchen. Well, that fell through with Eric. So it was like, all right, man, pretty much no bartending for a few months and, work on that, work on your salary that you did have. And I was like, man, so had to cut back even more to me because it's like, all right, bigger picture. Well, then at the end of that, I kind of, in the middle of all that is when, it kicked in at Rabbit Hole. So it's like, all right, cool. It's starting to feel that way. Like it's things are coming to light better in a way, because like for a while that was dark. Yeah, it was tough. Yeah. I have to admit it was tough a lot. I had many talks with KP, many talks with Bailey, many talks with my mom, my aunt, with you as well too. So I mean, it was a tough time, but in the end, I ended up buckling down and getting after it, and here we are now trying to open up, like I said, the 4th location. So I mean, I guess I'm trying to touch on all good, bad, and ugly there, but I guess the good now, like you said, it is one of those, it's a surreal feeling walking in, like, I own this. It's just like, it is, and not that sounded kind of cocky, but in a way it's not.
You deserve it.
It's just like, man, I worked hard for this. Like, who would have thought somebody like me from my background would even own a pub? I did tell you, I did always want to, but probably didn't have the means. I didn't choose the right
pubs.
I said pubs.
Numerous. More than
you
one.
said pub.
My bad, pubs. I forgot the S. My bad.
You got a few now.
The pubs, but yeah, I saw. I mean, we're here, I guess. I don't know.
What about, and I'll ask you to touch on this as well, the opportunities it's given you as far as like your free time with your daughters and traveling. You've never traveled more than you have in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it has opened up more time with the girls. It has helped out a lot more. That was the biggest frustration too. I know sometimes I didn't get to see them for almost 2 weeks, and so that would. I don't know if you guys know that you're a dad you're a girl dad, so it's even like I get it. Like, yes, if I had a boy, somewhat it'd be different, but I have 2 girls, so it's even. Like,
you're very involved.
And
in
what
that.
I want y'all to understand is, in bar life and as a bartender and as a bar manager, our majority of hours are put in the evenings. And especially our big money nights are Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays,
Thursdays,
and so that, when you have daughters and sons, or, when you have children, it really makes that hard, as Juwan said, to see your kids, because especially for us, we're not in the relationship with the mother, so it is a, every other weekend type thing. And so it was always a very big struggle for me as well to, have to give up those times with my daughter, because I had to make rent, and you have to be there on the weekends. And so I think that's another, big benefit that we get as entrepreneurs now.
And I explained to them a lot, like, why I was gone, and to make sure for their future and stuff like that. It's just, when I say I didn't see them for 2 weeks, I saw them, but not for the length that I wanted to see them.
Absolutely.
When I said, man, that sounded kind of bad, but yeah, I did see them, but of course they have school during the day, and I work at night.
You only have so much time in a day.
2 hours of Chunk and Kenny, and then off to work.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
Sorry, Chunk is Kendall, Kenny is Kennedy. Sorry. I just thought about that before.
It's more like sweat and sacrifice equity.
That's a really good.
Because you sacrifice a lot of your life. But
Really good
you have
point.
to remember the long-term goal, and that's why you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me it was a little bit different just because I had already started my own business. So I had a lot of, I could pick and choose what days I wanted to work or when I wanted to focus. A lot of my working was at night because I would wait till Riley went to bed, and for some reason my brain wakes up at night. But like, I think the biggest thing for me, like entry into this business, I probably had money that I could have put down.
Yep.
But entry into this business for me was a little unsafe So the sweat equity part of it was safe for me.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is not that I didn't trust that the business would do well. Obviously, I knew it would, but it's a new industry that I had never been a part of. I was a hostess in high school. Like, that doesn't count really as service industry, but like, it's always something that I was interested in, but to not take money out of an account and put it into a business that you're not sure if you'll even like it. Or if it's even right for me, putting in sweat equity was almost my safe way to enter into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a long time.
You don't think 2 years is a long time until you're working for, I mean, essentially no paycheck, but the big long-term end goal, that's what you're working for. And I mean, I was really young and naive at the time, and it was hard to look at that end goal, to be completely honest with y'all. I mean, I did a lot of growing up there during that time.
I think one thing that I really gained from it is just really learning. Like, I literally put myself in the business, not knowing anything about it, learning as much as I could from all of y'all that had been in this industry for a while. But, you know, I mean, Joanna and I would sit there when we first started doing inventory, and, you know, we would literally have an Excel spreadsheet and look at the tickets and like say, okay, one white tea, okay, that's Tito's and this, you know. So like, we were doing literally line by line inventory, and Chris kept on saying, why is this taking y'all 4 hours? And I'm like, well, first of all, we're learning, so it's just taken us a while, but we just really put ourselves in, you know. Got our feet really wet, got our whole bodies wet.
I think y'all did a very, very good job of mentoring each other in a lot of ways. So
I feel like we all helped each other learn. Like, there's stuff that I felt like I brought to the table, like even still to this day. Like, Juwan called me the other day and he's like, I want to make this graphic. Like, I want to learn how to make it, you know, and stuff like that. Like, trying to just understanding what everybody's role is also helps you get a lot more respect for them.
And knowledge is power.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, knowledge is power. When you learn how to do the things that you don't necessarily know how to do, it's rewarding too.
For sure.
You know, so how was it with you and Nick? As you know, Nick was your husband, or is your husband, and you know, he's obviously been a very, very big piece to our puzzle as well. He's absolutely an amazing man, and always there to help us out. But I also felt some frustration from him as well. On some ends. For you, not necessarily toward us, but for you.
A protection.
A protection.
He would see how stressed I would get, and it was mainly not necessarily just things going on at the bar. It's running a full-time marketing business while still trying to be there every day for y'all and for the business. And, you know, it's tiresome. And I had like a 2-year-old, you know? So spending time with her and trying to make sure that I was fully there and there, you know, in more ways than just present, you know, for them was tough. And I think, you know, Nick in his career, he is a very good leader at what he does. And so he was a very good voice of reason for me, because I've come from the corporate world and from an industry where the people that work for you are very different than the service industry.
Very much
and so I come from a much more tailored, people aren't drinking on the job. That's never, you know, we don't allow it in our bars, but you would never walk into Cook Children's, the healthcare system I worked at, and someone be drunk. You know, if you did, it would be the talk for the next 2 years, you know? And so, he was really good for me, just kind of helping me and guide me with how to encourage these people, including y'all on certain situations, in talking to people that weren't necessarily who I was used to talking to and encouraging. Because everybody needs a little bit of push, of encouragement. You know, every once in a while people can get very burnt out and stuff. So it's like he was good on that. But yeah, his frustration was real. It was a time thing. I think now it's a lot better, and you know, obviously because we're, you know, able to spend more time with the family and everything, and he gets involved, which is nice.
I was going to say
he's a
loves
hard worker.
Yeah,
I mean, that guy. If we could hire him, then we would, right? So
he's still on sweat equity.
Yeah, exactly. But that's part of the sweat and sacrifice equity. The good news is he believed in me, and he believes in us, and he knew what my end goal was, and was along for the ride on it. And while there's going to be frustrations throughout it, it always went back to the long term and just making sure generational wealth provide for the family, have these businesses that you can work in as long as you want.
Yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean. Because at the end of the day, the sweat equity is not necessarily for the salary that we're going to be getting. It's for when you sell the businesses.
Absolutely.
And that's when you're setting yourself up and your family up, your girls up, your kids up, etc. So
yeah. What about you, Bailey? How I know you went from basically a nocturnal style lifestyle, basically, just, I don't want to say just as to downplay it, but bartending and stepping into an ownership role. And how was that transition for you and the timing, your relationship? Obviously, we know Chris is just as great as Nick. And, for me, it was, luckily we all had very, very supportive people around us. That was very, very important. We didn't have anybody that was like, why are you doing this? You need to quit that. You're getting screwed over, because they couldn't see the bigger picture that you saw. So how was that for you in transition and financially and stress wise? And
okay, just to start from the beginning, I was all in from the time we talked at Mad Hatter and we had our meeting there. I was 100% in. Did I know that I wanted to own a business eventually in my life? Absolutely. But it's not easy at all. So I was extremely naive on it. And I learned every single day that I was going through my sweat equity. It was a challenge for me every single day. I mean, it was not easy for me at all, because also I was very immature at that time. I was drinking every day. My work-life balance was absolutely terrible, and I didn't take care of myself. So there was a growth factor in it all. In all reality. So I started out with the nighttime bartending, and while doing my sweat equity the first year. The second year, I started AM bartending, and that's our 7 a.m. to noon shift. And that's when my mind shifted, and that's when my body shifted, and that's when I realized I'm an adult. Let's get it together. And that's when I realized I could take the time and work on the business, not just the people in the business and bartending and being behind the bar. I walk into the business as a whole, not just one particular reason of bartending or managing the people. It's a whole factor. I mean, to be completely honest, I don't know if y'all know this, but I sat Chris down one day and I bawled my eyes out and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. Because it got me, because I couldn't control myself and my emotions, and I couldn't, I'm an emotional creature, and I just needed to have my team to talk me down and to say, it's all good. Let's come back down. Let's focus on what's really important, and let's focus on that long-term goal. And if it wasn't for these three people right here, I would not be where I am, because sometimes it's really, really hard for me to see a long-term goal, because I get so caught up in short-term goals. And financially, I was fine. Because my whole life I have been told to save money. My father's really, really good about me being on top of me about my financials. So there wasn't anything like my hands were tied behind my back to pay my rent. I was fine. I just needed to grow the heck up. And if I looked at myself a year ago from today, who is that?
Yeah.
Who's that girl? get it together. You need to, let's go. So I'm very proud of where I am today. I feel like I've done a ton of growing, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to do the sweat equity, because it taught me so much to really care and to learn what you're doing and really invest your heart into a company. And nobody's gonna talk bad about my little sister, like, kind of thing. Like, this is my company, these are my people. Nobody's gonna tell me. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I'm very invested.
I think that, one thing that maybe even something that you were looking for just now that wasn't quite coming to your mouth was confidence.
Yes.
You gained a lot of confidence. All of y'all have gained a lot of confidence. And, if you ask any, Oscar spends a lot of time with me. And if you ask anybody, I never take credit for this. I give you guys all the credit, because you guys have done so much. You guys have grown so much. I continuously talk about how proud I am of each and every one of y'all. Y'all have just, like you said, you a year or two ago are not even in the same ballpark that y'all were in last time. Y'all walk with such confidence. Y'all talk with such confidence. You're confident in the decisions that you make, and the way that you handle your business. And that is something that you can't necessarily teach. You have to either grow into it or you abandon it, and you allow yourself to fall back into that immature nature. But with you guys, being able to see that long-term goal and see the bigger picture and understand that we weren't just trying to build one single bar and try to make a few bucks here and there. Like, that was never our big picture. Our big picture was to continue doing what we're doing, and being a consulting company to help other people, open and run bars and things like that. So y'all should all be very, very proud of yourselves for being able to stick that out, because we did have another partner that did not see the bigger picture, and unfortunately he didn't make it. But I think that we're exactly where we're supposed to be. And to be quite honest with you, and no disrespect toward him, I don't know what that picture would look like now. I don't know where that puzzle piece would fit. I don't think it would. So I think that, it was kind of a survival of the fittest, if you'll say, and it is a very, very much dog eat dog world, when it comes to that, because like they just described, it's a lot of hard work with what seems to be little to no payoff right up front. It is definitely a long-term investment, but not only into the business, but into yourselves and the growth that it forces you to have in order to do that. Because it's like, building someone a house for free but not getting to live in it. It's kind of a tough deal. But when you realize they say, hey, that whole back part of the house is yours at the end of the day, then you're like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Wow. But it is hard to realize that up front. So I very much think that you guys should be very, very proud of yourselves for being able to stick that out. And we've kind of talked about the bad part of it, and the hard, I don't want to say the bad part of it, but the hard part of it. Do y'all have some just really
sweet parts?
Yeah.
Sweet parts. For me, I will say it has allowed me to live a life that I never dreamed of, to travel. Now we don't punch a clock. I don't ask them to be here at a certain time every single day or put in this many hours. I trust them to run their business and do what they need to do. Some days it may be 8-9 hour days. Some days it may be 2 hour days, and some days you just take off, and that's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship. I think about my life and all the things that I do from 8 to 5, and I wonder if I worked a corporate job from 8 to, how would I do it? You get a 1 hour.
About that all the
I
time.
could not go back.
You have a 1 hour break, like, maybe you need to go deposit your check or, go get lunch. How do you do that? And how do you squeeze that into 1 week where you have 5 hours from 8 to 5 that you can do that.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you work that corporate job, which is probably a beating, and you're probably driving 30 to 45 minutes in traffic back and forth. And then if you have families, you have to get home to the family. As you know, you got to provide, you got to bring home dinner, you got to take care of the daughters. You know, how do you do that? You know, and I don't understand how a lot of people do that. And like you said, I would, you know, I haven't been in that world in 20 years, but I can never, you know, I tell people one of the biggest things that I would never ever want to do, and especially it really hits home every single time around this time of year for time change. Because think about this. If you left for work in the morning because your commute is 30 to 45 minutes, you're driving in the dark.
Yep, I did this.
But then because of time change, you leave work at 5 and by 5:30 it's dark. You know what I mean? Like, oh my, I can't even imagine it.
It's the epitome of the daily grind.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we grind, right? We
Yeah,
still have
for
a daily
sure.
grind. It just looks different.
For sure.
It's more on our terms.
And a little bit too about what their lives look like now. Again, like I said, they don't punch a clock. They do their work. They can work from home if they need to. We have this beautiful office that we have. You know, we're getting better about working on the business and not in the business. So yeah, I would like to hear what you guys. How about this? We'll just wrap this up with what is y'all's favorite thing about the end of the sweat equity into full entrepreneurship that it has provided you guys?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot. I do want to say real quick, because we didn't talk on this, but I felt like our sweat equity looked a little bit different than some people might.
Absolutely.
And one thing is because the way you handled things. And what I mean by that is, like, there's a lot of people that would take on a team but still want to be in it 100%.
Yeah.
Not that you weren't in it 100%, but
Right.
you let us make decisions.
For sure.
I can't tell you how many times we would be talking about something and Chris wouldn't chime in, and then I'd kind of look at him and he'd give him a look and he'd say, "What are y'all going to do?" And so it was literally throwing us in the trenches as a positive, though.
Yeah.
Like, because we learned by our mistakes. We learned by the decisions we made. We gained so much knowledge because you gave us that opportunity.
Yeah.
Did we make bad decisions sometimes? Yeah. And then you would come in, you would mentor us, you would guide us, you would coach us. But it just was, I think that one of the biggest benefits of having that sweat equity is that you literally just threw us out there and said, go. And
With
that
trust.
sounds terrible. You still
No.
guided us a lot.
A ton.
But I feel like that's how we really, really learned.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we would have every day come in and said, okay, we're going to do exactly what Chris Jordan does and he's going to guide us and that's all we're going to do, then who knows where we'd be.
Well, you know, y'all have heard me say it 100 times, and I'm sure he's heard it 100 times by now.
We can all say it together if we want to.
I row y'all row the boat. I just steer it. But you know, that's what I tell everybody. They row the boat. I just steer it. If they need me to hop down there and row with them, y'all always know I'm right there to do it.
Yep.
And we'll tell you. We need you.
It is one of those things that I was micromanaged as a manager, and it was one of those things that I realized. A lot of people ask me why I never even attempted to try to buy into Woody's, why I never talked to John about being an owner in Woody's or doing anything like that. And my answer was always the same, because it doesn't matter how much money or time I would have put into that place, it would have always been John Hinkle's bar.
Yeah.
I would have never had a say in anything. Everything would have been John's way. John's a great guy. He's 20 some odd years into business. He's successful at what he's doing. He's a very, very intelligent man. I had to be smart enough to know that I put people that are around me that are smarter than me in areas that I'm not smarter in, and also people that believed in my vision, but people I sincerely believed in all the time. Like Bailey mentioned, you know, there were talks that we had. Bailey, you got this. I'm not going to give up on you. You've got this. You know, talks that Juwan and I've had, you know, those talks were always me, you know, just again, pouring into y'all the confidence that I knew that I had in y'all, but y'all didn't quite have in yourselves yet. So that was always the reason I kind of let y'all do your own things, because again, with the frustration that you can have, you know, in that sweat equity period, or even being partners or in a business, of having somebody micromanage and know this. No, it's this way. It's that way. At that point, how do you ever really feel like an owner? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think that was my biggest thing is always, like I told you guys, always, I want y'all to feel, walk, talk, and be the owners of this place and take the ownership of this place and really, really immerse yourselves in it. And I thought that was the best way I could do that. So I'm glad that y'all recognize that.
Absolutely.
Yep. Positive, going back to your original question.
Yeah.
Just the freedom.
Yeah.
The freedom's
beautiful.
Big. Especially when you have a team. Mm-hmm. I'm not always 100%. I have days that I'm 10%, but I know I got 90% right here too.
Yes.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
and there's days that are hard, there's days that are great, and it's like we're there for each other. We pick up the pieces if they've fallen or anything, and on a bad day, I know I have y'all that can come in and take over. Or if I call and say, gonna go to the lake house with my mom next week for her birthday. Sorry for the late notice.
Yep.
Y'all all said, good, go, have fun.
Please, go.
And if
Enjoy
I
your
text
time.
y'all work stuff, y'all are all going to get mad at me. So it's that part of the freedom.
Yeah.
We're ignoring you for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's the freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree on that for sure. And not that I did make great money while I was bartending, but having an exact amount of a salary that you know you're going to get, having that steady income, and then, the freedom. I mean, being so blessed to be able to be flexible and go to lunch if we want. Excuse me.
Lunch.
Yeah, I'm like, I know that's the smallest things in life, but it's the small things in life that make life happy, and you
Amen
need
to
to
that.
enjoy those.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
I picked up golf.
Ooh, okay, honestly,
Just
I'm with you on that.
I was like, yeah.
Both of y'all.
I picked up
Yeah.
golf. This is like, that's a job in its own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, AJ, they got me into golf, and both kind of just took me under their wing, showing me Chris Jordan. I know a lot of Chris's. Sorry, Chris Jordan is what I mean by that. And golly, Chris said, once you start, it's gonna be hard. Not hard, but like it's gonna be to get more involved into it. And then next thing you know, I'm buying clubs.
The money pit.
Yeah.
It's so expensive, but it's the best.
You know what?
the
I'm
best thing
so
money can
glad
buy.
that you found a passion. I know you enjoy video games too, and spending time with your daughter, but I'm glad that you found a passion that you really, really, that gets you outside, that you really enjoy. And, we can, wrap this up pretty quick, but how much business gets done on a golf course?
Okay, a lot.
You can network and
The
really,
TPC Scott stuff because of it too.
yeah. I mean, you
And
can
stress relief.
Oh, absolutely.
Teaches you patience.
But you can really network and meet. I mean, we met an old player for the Indianapolis Colts that owns Broncos. Remember, we played golf with
He played
him.
for the Colts, yes.
Yeah, he
Owns
played for
Broncos,
the
yeah.
Colts and the Broncos, and he owns Broncos
cool.
out in Dallas and has for 30 years.
Wow.
A guy's 6'7", but a great man. And I guarantee you, if we ever went to him for anything, you know what I mean? He's there. Everything. Y'all hear me all the time. Life is all about building relationships.
Yes.
And so, I love that for Juwan, and he has definitely immersed himself in golf. And Bailey got into it pretty well as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can wrap that up, this episode up, and just really, I hope people understand a little bit more about sweat equity. The reason I wanted to make this episode is, one, it's the name of our podcast, which is brought to you by M4D Concepts. But what I really wanted to let people know is I couldn't find a video out there, one, that really let people know. Yeah, they would give you the definition of sweat equity, but nobody gave you the experience of sweat
the
equity.
real side of it.
The real side of it, And again, just to recap, sweat equity is basically anything that's going to make you sweat in exchange for a percent of equity into a company without having to bring capital into it, your own capital into it, money. I think that... Again, you guys should be very proud of yourselves for sticking it out. I thank you guys for seeing the bigger picture, and even through the frustrations and the hard times, and now we're all in it together again with Seared. So,
Thank
guys,
you for seeing it in us.
absolutely, absolutely, y'all deserved it. Mm-hmm. So, thanks for joining us, guys. We hope to see you on the next episode. And if you got any questions, drop them in the comments. We'd love to answer them for you. Until next time, we'll see you.